Hi, and welcome back to Your Body Moving. So, we're now going to get into the sort of series of yoga classes that I want to put on this channel for you. My intention with these is to film them in segments so that essentially you'll be able to string them together like a playlist and create your own class that fits you. So, if you have time for 20 minutes, then that'll fit in with your schedule, or if you want to do a longer class of 45 minutes or an hour, and so on. So before I do get into that, I like to teach Vinyasa Flow yoga, which, if you do not know, it's a yoga where you're moving continually. So each movement is accompanied either by an inhalation or an exhalation. So you move with the breath. So it's quite a almost athletic type of yoga. And indeed, for sections of it, it's quite a good cardiovascular workout, to be honest. So with my classes, I have a sequence of movements that fulfill a certain purpose, and they are linked to the next sequence of movements by Sun Salutation. A lot of teachers will say, right, come, let's just do a vinyasa. It's a Sun Salutation, it's a Sun Salutation, Surya Namaskar, which is composed of different movements. Now, because Vinyasa Flow yoga moves continually, if you're not used to doing these type of movements, it's kind of like, it reminds me back in the day being in an aerobics class and standing right at the back and not having a clue what was going on, and just kind of trying to follow on as best I could and not getting any benefit from it. So I want to go through the entire Sun Salutation flow, and I want to discuss alignment with you and what you should be feeling and the correct way of doing these poses. Now, there is no perfect pose in yoga. And the most important thing is to listen to your body. There are different anatomical anomalies, differences in different people. So it's my experience that most people who enjoy doing yoga and who practice yoga often and are very passionate about it are actually people with hyperflexibility. I'm one of them. So it's easy for these people to get into all these sort of funky positions. They're not restricted, and so it appeals to them. The problem that comes with being hyperflexible, and you can get into all these fabulous positions, is that actually you become more prone to injury, which is one of the main reasons why I injured my knee, is because I am hyperflexible. So the joints are not stable. So they move around a little bit too much. This is to do with connective tissues and a whole lot of things. The way that I teach my yoga classes, I'm quite strict about muscles being active, about the movements being active. There's no passive movements in my class. Every pose that you go on into, there is activation somewhere. I want the joints to be stabilized, and I want you to be safe. Okay, so that's the first thing. I'm very passionate about this. We want to avoid injury. And if we are silly about things and throw ourselves into various poses without stabilizing and without performing them mindfully, that is when injury happens. Injury also happens when the ego kind of takes over, when you stop listening to your body, when your body is saying, can't actually go much further than this, and you say, oh, come on, you push yourself. So as with all things nowadays, I just also want to add a few disclaimers. The type of yoga that I teach, Vinyasa Flow yoga, you are going to alter the orientation of your head quite often you'll see when I do the Surya Namaskar, when I demonstrate, you're going from standing upright to having the head down, to having the head up, down, and so on. So if you do have low blood pressure, or you have possibly experienced or do experience vertigo, if you are somebody who tends to get a bit motion sick, this can make you nauseous. I know that an overwhelming consensus in general is people will respond by saying, oh, that's the body detoxifying. And possibly that is the case. I'm not saying that it's not. However, I do feel you have to look at other factors. Just bear that in mind before you start following on with me. If you do start feeling nauseous or dizzy, please stop. Come into child's pose, lie on your back, do Shavasana. This might not be the style of yoga that's ideal for you. If you do want to do some of the classes with me, then leave out any of the inversions, in other words, when the head is down. Leave out the Sun Salutation, where the head is coming up and down, and perhaps just do the standing poses. You can definitely benefit from those. And listen to your body. So, yeah. The other thing is, on the other end of the spectrum from low blood pressure, is if you do have high blood pressure, it's not advisable for you to do the inversions where your head is down, like the downward facing dog and that type of thing. So please bear that in mind. Okay, thank you. So before I get into all these movements, I will speak quite a lot about drawing the navel back towards the spine, or activating your abdominals, or utilizing your core. And essentially what I'm speaking about here are your very deep lying abdominal muscles. I'm speaking about your transverse abdominis. So your transverse abdominis, it looks almost like a corset. Okay, so it goes all the way around the torso and connects to the spine. It's a muscle that, when activated, actually stabilizes the spine, keeps your movement safe. It's the muscle that we want to kind of tap into when we are doing all of these movements, creating the stability, the safety through the body. So how do we activate the transverse abdominis? So it's great knowing which muscle you're wanting to use, or which muscle you're wanting to activate, but how do you do that? So lie on your back and bend your legs, and take your index and middle fingers just on the insides of your hip bones, okay, and press down. And now cough. I don't know if you felt that little bouncing of the muscle underneath your fingers. Now, still pressing down with the fingers, begin to draw your belly button downwards, as if you're bringing it down towards the floor. Not by sucking it in using your breath, but by using your muscles. So do that, and you should feel those muscles moving underneath your fingers. If you're feeling that muscle move beneath your fingers in a similar way to the way that it did when you coughed, then you are activating it. So practice that lying on the ground and see if you can get that muscle to work. And then you know that is the muscle that we need to really activate to stabilize the spine, to keep the back safe. And when I say navel to spine, all of that, that's what I want you to be feeling and to be doing. Right, so your Sun Salutation. I like to put this in right at the beginning of the practice, and we do maybe 3, 4, 5 rounds. It's continual movement. It's a beautiful warm-up to do. It gets the heart rate up and it gets the body warm. I don't like stretching the body in a static way when it's cold. I like it to be warm first, so I use this for that. And as I've mentioned before, this is something that comes in between a sequence of movements that are linked, just to bring sort of fluidity and continuity to the entire. So I like to start with Samastitihi. There's a lot of principles of Tadasana that I bring into this pose. So Samasthiti means equal standing pose. So we'll start with the feet. You will gather as we continue that I'm quite obsessed with feet. So let's begin with the base of the body. So the feet are the base of your body. Plant your big toe, so it's pressing into the ground, and lift all your other toes up. Okay, spread them out as wide as you can. And what's quite interesting is when people are doing this, you notice their fingers go at the same time, which is quite fun. So spread your toes out as wide as you can and then plant them onto the mat. A healthy foot has got these beautiful, widely spread apart toes and this broadness to it. You'll see it in kids who are primarily barefoot. The best thing that you can do for yourself is to walk barefoot as much as possible. So once you've got those toes nice and separated, and what you'll find is that it's actually quite a difficult thing to do if you're not used to doing this, and if you're used to wearing shoes. The shoes will push those toes together, so you've got them all we want them nice and wide. And then press down to that big toe. So as you press down to that big toe, you might notice your arch activating and lifting up. Okay, so we're activating these feet, we're waking them up. We're wanting them to work. We don't think about our feet most of the time. We just walk around, and if they perform the function they're supposed to perform, this arch is your perfect shock absorber. There's nothing that can be reproduced by man that's as perfect as what is produced by nature, in my opinion. Anyway, so your feet are nice and firm, and you want your weight to be spread out almost like a triangle. So you've got the outsides of the balls of your feet back to the middle of your heel where the calcaneus bone comes down. So close your eyes. Now, when we close our eyes, the only way that the body has to orientate where it is in space is through the feet. So focus on the feet now. You're not being distracted by anything else. Notice how you're distributing your weight. Is your weight more on your right foot, slightly more on the left foot, or is it equal? Remember, equal standing pose. Is your weight equally distributed? Is your weight more on the balls of your feet, or is it more on the heels of your feet? Or is your weight distributed nicely between that triangle? Okay, so from the feet we move up the body. This is a lot of explanation for a standing pose, but it's important because we want to get the principles correct. We cannot do any movement correctly if we don't have the basics. It's like anything. So we move up the legs, these quadriceps to be engaged. So they're pulling the kneecaps upward. Okay, that's them passive and that's them active. So I don't know if you could see the kneecap pulls up slightly. Moving around towards the back, I want the glutes to be engaged. Okay, so they are squeezing nice and tight. Belly button to move back towards the spine as you activate this transverse abdominis. Note then, so everything's tight, everything's active, everything's working. I want the shoulders down. Video number 3, my third video, discussed this. I want the shoulders down, I want the shoulder blades flat, and I want those shoulders sitting in their sockets nice and stable. So we're activating all those lovely stabilizers in the back, bringing those shoulder blades against the body. Now, watch that when you're standing like this, you aren't poking those ribs forward, okay? So draw the bottom ribs in towards the spine. It's a tiny little movement. And make those shoulders nice and square. So this body's active. This is tiring. Arms at the sides, fingers extended, straight down. And then the neck is nice and long. So we're not jutting that chin forward. It's back. The back of the neck is nice and long. And the crown of the head is drawing up towards the ceiling. Now your body is working. This is not a resting pose. This is a very active pose. Your muscles aren't changing in length, but you have an isometric contraction of the muscle. So it is working. So you'll start to feel the heat rising in the body, and you may actually start to have an increase in the heart rate. Okay, closing the eyes. Just be aware of the body, be aware of how it feels. Notice how it feels. Okay, so this is the pose that we return to at the end of every Surya Namaskar before we begin our next series of movements, our next flow. So your second pose, moving on from this Surya, from this equal standing pose, is we raise the arms. I'm afraid I don't have enough space to get my camera far enough away, so you're going to lose the top of my arms. But we inhale and we bring the arms overhead. Now, again with my shoulder video, and I will tag that up here. I think it'll be up here. I don't want you raising the shoulder by contracting this trapezius and just bringing that shoulder up towards the ear. Make sure that those shoulder blades are nice and fixed, and raise the arms overhead, keeping the shoulders down. So you're going to feel it working in your upper back. Looking up between the hands. So the palms are facing toward each other, they're not touching. Looking up between the hands. And as we exhale, we're going to swan dive forward. Here is where your Ujjayi breath, second video, I'll link that up here. Here's where your Ujjayi breath is going to come into play, and you're going to exhale as you come forward. The reason this is going to help you is it's going to look after your spine. It creates a stability by causing this pressure, this kind of back pressure in the body. So arms up and exhaling, coming forward, keep that back flat. I don't want that spine rolling. I want this position to remain the same. You're just hinging from the hips. So exhaling, keeping the chest open and coming down to the mat. Now I'm going to show you this from the side. So the arms are overhead. Inhale, looking up between the hands. Exhaling, swan diving down, flat back, open chest. Exhaling, holding this entire core nice and tight, looking after your spine. Exhaling, 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 coming down to the mat. So looking down at the mat and then dropping the head. Then inhaling, flattening the back. If your hands are not on the mat, you can take them to your shin and look ahead. If you do have yoga blocks, you can use them. Don't be afraid to use props. They are there to help you avoid injury. So looking upwards. So keeping that heart open and the shoulders nice and flat against the back. Inhaling, exhaling, folding again. So what you want to concentrate in this position, this Uttanasana, is getting the chest towards the thighs, not the head to the knees, the chest to the thighs. Okay, shoulders nice and away. So let's go through the series of poses again. I'm going to stand side on. So starting Samastitihi, equal standing pose. Body active. Quads are engaged, kneecaps are lifted, glutes are engaged, core is pulled back, shoulders are nice and flat and down, the neck is long, arms at the side. Inhale, arms up, goes up between the hands. Exhaling as we swan dive down towards the mat, back flat, chest open, dropping the head. Inhale, flatten that spine. Exhale, stepping back into a nice plank. Now, your alignment here, let's go from the hands. Your fingers are splayed. They are always splayed as when your hands are on the ground. The wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder are in line. Your shoulder blades are flat. Don't come up between the shoulders like that. Keep those shoulder blades flat. Tight to the core. And then we're going to come into Chaturanga Dandasana. Here I want the elbows to really graze the ribs. So coming down to the mat, and the chest comes to the floor first. And then release the toes. If you cannot come down so that the chest hits the ground first, I don't want you to come down and drop the hips. That's just a recipe for lower back being injured. You drop the knees. I've placed a towel here because it's very painful for my knee to be in contact with the ground. And then again, it doesn't change. I want those elbows to really glue themselves to the rib cage and the chest to come down first before the belly drops onto the ground, releasing the toes. And we come up either into Cobra or upward facing dog. So in Cobra, we bring the chest up off the ground. Upward facing dog, bringing the entire body off the ground. So the only parts of the body that have got contact to the ground are the tops of the feet and the palms of the hands. Now, this pose, it's extremely important that we don't put too much strain on the lower back. So how do we avoid that? We avoid that by engaging that core, by engaging those deep lying abdominal muscles. So when your core is working, it won't let you come up too high, and it will protect your lower back. So coming up into upward facing dog or Cobra, and then we're going to roll back into downward facing dog. So bringing the weight, as you can see, I'm going to start rolling over my feet and lifting those hips up towards the sky. I always have a habit of stepping the feet even slightly forward. So now we're in downward facing dog. So let's go through our alignment in downward facing dog, and we're going to start with the hands. So again, hands are in contact with the mat. Those fingers are splayed. We're almost pushing the mat away from us with the hands. We are pressing down into the thumb and index finger. The forearm or the lower arm is rotating inward. The upper arm is rotating outward. Your elbows are nice and straight. The insides of your elbows are looking at each other. Because that upper arm is rotated outward, it's rotated in the sockets. You've got that nice flat back, and you've got that beautiful open chest, and your shoulders are away from the ears. So you're wanting to get those hips up as high as you can. They're the apex of your triangle. You are pushing the mat away from you with your hands. You're getting those hips up as high as you possibly can. You're drawing that navel towards the spine. And you can have a soft bend in the knees. Towards the beginning of your practice, when you're not warm, I want the softness through the knees. And then as you get warmer and warmer, as your practice continues, those heels will start to come lower and lower and lower towards the ground. The head is the only thing on the body that just hangs. Imagine it like an apple hanging off a branch on a tree. It's just hanging down and relaxing. So this is your downward facing dog. And then to finish off this sequence of movements, we bring the head up and we look between the hands, come up onto those toes, and walk the feet up to the top of the mat. Inhaling as we flatten that spine. Exhaling as we fold. So to come back up to standing, I want you to use your glutes and to hinge from the hips. I don't want any rolling up the spine. I want the spine to stay supported. So we're engaging the core, we're squeezing the glutes, and we're opening the body, almost like we're opening a book. Okay. So squeezing the glutes, inhaling, coming up to standing, exhaling, bringing the hands down in prayer. So now that I've gone through each movement and broken it down, Let's do the entire sequence. Decided I'd face the other way just for a change of scenery. Okay, so standing samastitihi, so get your body nice and stable, engaging those muscles. Remember to keep that core activation throughout and those deep breaths. So inhaling, arms up above the head, gaze between the hands. Exhaling, forward fold, keeping that back nice and flat, dropping the head, Uttanasana. Inhale, flatten that spine. Exhale as we step back into plank. Chaturanga Dandasana, letting that chest come to the ground before the belly, releasing the toes. Inhaling, Cobra or upward dog. Exhaling as you roll back over those feet. Coming to downward facing dog, getting those hips as high as you can. Looking between the hand, inhaling as you walk the feet up between the hands. Flattening the spine, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhaling in Uttanasana, squeeze those glutes. Inhale up to standing. Exhaling, prayer, and hands at the sides. Very nice. So that was a kind of a slowed down version. So do that a few times. We're going to speed it up just slightly, but we are not going to take away our mindfulness or being present. So we are going to do every movement with intention and with thought and with care. Okay, so inhaling, arms above the head, gaze between the hands. Exhaling, swan diving down into Uttanasana, forward fold. Dropping the head, inhale, flattening the spine. Exhale, stepping back into plank. Chaturanga Dandasana, elbows in, chest to the floor first, releasing the toes. Inhale, upward dog or cobra. Exhale, coming back into downward facing dog. Gaze up between the hands. Inhale, walking up towards the hands. Exhale, fold. Squeeze those glutes together. Inhale, come up to standing. Exhaling in prayer. Again, inhale, arms up, gaze between the hands. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, flatten the spine. Exhale, plank. Chaturanga Dandasana, elbows in. Inhale, upward dog or cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Walking the feet up towards the hands. Inhale, flatten the spine. Exhale, fold, squeeze the glutes, unfold. Inhaling. Exhaling, prayer. Again, inhale. Hands up towards the ceiling, gaze between the hands. Exhaling, forward fold. Inhale, flattening the spine. Exhale, stepping back into plank. Chaturanga Dandasana, elbows in. Inhale, upward dog or cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Gaze between the hands, walk the feet up to meet the hands. Inhale, flatten the spine. Exhale, fold, squeeze the glutes. Inhale to standing. Exhaling in prayer. Beautiful. So this beautiful sequence of movements, this sun salutation, can be used in a lot of different ways. Use it on its own as a quick cardio. Use it before you're going to go into your strength training as a dynamic warm-up, getting your muscles activated and ready and working. After you've possibly done 10 minutes of treadmill or stationary bike or cross trainer or whatever it is, before you start picking up your weights or whatever it is that you're doing, do a few series of sun salutation. It really wakes up the body and gets all those muscles prepared and ready to work. So practice these a few times. I will be using it a lot. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you in my future videos. If you have any questions or queries, please leave a comment down below, or alternatively, join my Facebook page, Your Body Moving, and leave a comment or a question there, and I will answer to the best of my abilities. Take care and stay safe. Cheers.